I'm Marc Thompson, and I'm here as part of We Are Social's Black Perspective series. I'm a HIV activist, a long-term Brixton resident, an openly black queer man living with HIV, and I'm currently the lead commissioner of the London HIV prevention programme, which you might also know as Do It London. I'm out here trying to end new HIV transmissions and make life better for people who are living with and affected by HIV. Okay, first question. Who were your early role models and how did they influence the path you've taken? I'd like to say that I had lots of black queer role models when I was growing up, but they just didn't exist in the world that I existed in the 1970s and the 1980s. So my role models were my dad, my granddad, and my mum and my uncles, the family that were around me. I come from a working class Jamaican background. Both my parents and my grandparents migrated here, would be considered the Windrush generation. Their strength, their resilience, their ability to overcome many of the struggles that they faced when they came to the UK in the 1950s and 60s really influenced and inspired me to understand that not only do I have a place in this world, but I'm valued, I can thrive, and I should survive. Everything that they did has really put me on the path for addressing social injustice, for trying to make the world a better place, but particularly a place that's better and safer for people that look like me and love like me. So I'm really been committed to addressing the needs of black queer people through all of my career. And even the way I dress and the way that I act in the world has been influenced by my dad and my granddad, really strong Jamaican men who made a huge difference in this country. Second question. What first inspired you to do the work that you do in HIV? Well, I was inspired to do the work I do in HIV by my own HIV diagnosis in 1986 when I was aged 17. I'd just come out a year before as a young gay man. I knew very little about HIV and AIDS at the time. The epidemic was just starting to hit these shores, and I got a test and found out I was positive. For a long time I wandered around in the darkness and was really upset and really down and angry about what had happened to me. But in the early 90s, I understood that my story and my experience could make a bit of a difference in the world. So I worked with other black gay men who are in similar situations to set up groups to try to ensure that other black gay men, particularly younger black gay men who are my age, had the right tools and the right information to have safer sex, to be able to speak to their doctors, to make sure that they could be in spaces of safety. So it was my own need and my own desire, and recognizing when I looked out in the world and I needed help and support, there was nothing for me. So I'm a great believer in build it and they will come, but also fill in a gap if it's not there. So my work has always been around responding to a need for communities that don't have their needs addressed. So in essence, because of my own experience, because of the upset and the anger and the hurt that I felt, I just wanted to make a difference in the world and to try to challenge the injustices that exist. How has your activism evolved over the years, and what and who continues to motivate you? So I'm not your traditional carry a placard, march on Downing Street, Extinction Rebellion type activist protester. And the reason that I haven't been that is because one, it just didn't really suit me. But also as a black man in this world, I'm also very, very conscious that if I'm in those spaces, there is a higher likelihood that I could be stopped by the police, I could be pulled out of a protest, and if I am arrested, there's much more likelihood that I will be unfairly treated by the criminal justice system. But there are so many other ways that we can turn up and be activists and be disruptive and be radical. And that in this day and age with social media, there are even more opportunities to do that. I'm not a huge fan of keyboard warriors. I don't think one tweet changes the world, but by collective action, by finding like-minded people, those people who couldn't or didn't want to go to the BLM protest because of their anxiety. What can you do at home? Could you have helped somebody write their placards? Could you have been the person that manages the social media? Could you organise a letter writing campaign to your MPs and get 20 friends to sign that letter? Is it sometimes just being around that dinner table at Christmas with your bigoted uncle or aunt and challenging them and standing in your truth when you do so? So there are so many ways. I think the most important thing is that you show up. You're authentic, you're able to hold your own, but also you know your facts, but you also do it with grace and kindness. Far too often these days we get into shouting matches with people that oppose us and we don't listen. Being an activist isn't just about shouting, it's also about stepping back and listening. We need to convince, we need to engage, and we need to persuade. My activism has really evolved with the times because the fight changes, the way that we engage with the world has changed, the people that we engage with has definitely changed as well. My early years of activism were really around trying to provide information, support, and create safe spaces for other black gay men. So you might look at it as being quite internal activism, quiet and gentle, speaking to people, trying to make sure that they had the right language, they could access condoms. If they wanted to get a HIV test, they knew where to get it. And it was done because there was no internet. You had to do it physically. You had to do it face to face. I was never a marcher. I didn't go out in the streets and protest. But what I did try to do was to ensure that my community could come together and they could come together safely. The first organisation I set up was called Big Up, which was an organisation which was specifically founded to provide culturally appropriate and specific information and tools to black gay men in South London. And the reason that was so important, and it was a radical act, was because all of the mainstream organisations were not going near us and were not considering our specific cultural needs. So that's what was really important for me. Over the years, particularly over the past 10 to 15 years, my activism has become much more visible. With the advent of social media, I've used my platforms to talk openly about living with HIV, encouraging people to get tested, challenging stigma through my own story and amplifying the stories of others. More recently, I've been heavily involved in enabling and getting access to PrEP, the drug that can prevent HIV, by working with colleagues across the HIV sector to challenge the NHS to try to make sure that PrEP could get into the hands of people that need it. What and who continues to motivate me? Well, the fight isn't won. We still have a battle that goes on. We see the rise of the far right, what we're seeing with the attack on our trans community and our trans siblings. So there is always going to be a need for me and for people like me to go out and make noise and challenge the status quo and fight injustice. And who motivates me? Well, it's the amazing young activists that I see out in the world who are still doing really, really great things. So that always inspires me and motivates me to keep going. What challenges have you faced as an openly queer black man living with HIV in public spaces like the media and activism? I've been really fortunate that my family and my close circle of friends all accepted my sexuality and accepted and supported me around my HIV diagnosis. And I don't take that lightly because that gave me a certain amount of privilege to work in the world. When you've got people that love, care and support for you, it makes dealing with your own challenges that little bit easier. But the challenges I have faced is trying to ensure that my narrative, my story, my experiences, and those of people like me have a seat at the table and that they are heard. The voices of black communities, the voices of black queer people, and the voices of people living with HIV, and the way that those all intersect, are very often ignored and left out of the mainstream narrative. So, yes, I could say I faced HIV stigma, I have. Yes, I faced racism, yes. I faced homophobia, all of those things. But they haven't impacted me in such a way as invisibility or erasure from particular spaces. And those are the challenges that I feel that I've needed to overcome. And I'm really glad at this point in my career that I've had an impact where I can look at some of the spaces where I struggled to get in, and the voices and the experiences of black queer men in particular are now considered and are now thought about. What would you like to see change in how our healthcare systems support Black communities? Part of my work is around ending new HIV transmissions in the UK and in London, and I think that's a great ambition for us to have. But HIV is not a London issue, it's not a UK issue, it's a global issue. HIV and ill health happens across the world, and if we don't take a global perspective, we may get to a target that we want to reach in the UK, and that's great for us to tick that box, but it just takes more people to come in with HIV, it takes people to travel, and that doesn't change. And I'm about global equity. So we've recently seen cuts to foreign aid in this country, cuts from US aid, which is already having a direct impact on people's ability to access HIV prevention tools, HIV treatment that not only keeps people alive, it stops them from passing HIV on. If we as UK activists do not keep our eye on that global ball, it will come hurtling down the hill and it will hit us as well. So there's that phrase about think local, act global. We have to really do that. We know that Black communities are disproportionately impacted by so many poor health outcomes. If we look to what happened across the COVID pandemic, through to mental health, right through to HIV in this country. Institutional racism, systemic racism all play a part in this. Health inequalities are driven by societal factors. So unless we start to address those issues, first and foremost, we're not onto a winner. I think one of the simple solutions is the healthcare system acknowledging that those health inequalities exist in the first place. They don't happen separately to the health system. The healthcare system is part of society, and so we have to address it holistically and in the round. We could fix the healthcare system by trying to make sure it's anti-racist, by trying to ensure that it meets the needs of those that need it the most. But if I go to hospital and all of that's great, then I step out on the street and I'm failed by the criminal justice system or the education system or the housing system, I'm going to be right back in hospital. So we have to fix all those wider societal, wider determinants of health, and then look at how we can address the healthcare system. Not one simple solution, there's work to be done, but acknowledgement is the key. Ooh. How do you feel representation of Black queer voices has changed in recent years, both in the media and in activism? I like to say that when I came out, I existed in a small Black gay village. Everybody knew everybody, we're all in each other's business, you can knock on your neighbour's door for a glass of milk or a cup of sugar. Where we are in 2025, particularly in the capital, in London, we live in a Black queer city. There are more of us than ever. We're everywhere, in every borough, we're different tribes. Whatever you want, you can find it. And I think that has been reflected in the media as well, and wider society. I can switch on my TV and I'll see Black queer characters on TV. I'll see us in newspapers. I can pick up a number of books written by amazing Black queer authors. So I think that representation has actually changed and has got better and has increased. However, we are still not the people that are obviously in control of telling our stories. We don't have positions of power in the media or in agencies or in politics. So I think that's where we can make really good systemic change. It's wonderful having Black queer characters on all your major soaps, and I'm really happy if I switch on Coronation Street and I see two Black gay men there in love. That's beautiful, and that's wonderful for that young Black queer teen who may be feeling isolated and lonely. It's probably great for some older Black gays as well. But does that lead to real change? Does that have a real impact on people's day-to-day lives? So media representation is really important and really valuable, but who controls that? And does it have a wider impact on who we are and how we exist and how we're able to live fully and to be our authentic selves? What is the one piece of advice you would give your younger self? There are so many things I'd like to say to my younger self, many of them. But I think the key thing that I would say, particularly to that 17-year-old who had just been diagnosed with HIV or had just come out age 16 the year before, is it's going to be okay. Stick with what you're doing. Don't change anything. The things that you're going to go through and experience, they may be hurtful, they may be painful, they may bring you lasting trauma, but you're also going to experience immense periods of joy. You're going to meet some of the most incredible people. You're going to fall in and out of love. You're going to travel. You're going to experience wonderful things, and all of those things are going to make you into the man that I am today. So grab hold, buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but you are going to come out of it the other end richer, happier, smarter, wiser, and more fulfilled. What is next in store for you? I'm currently the lead commissioner of the London HIV Prevention Programme, which is a big pan-London programme that aims to work with other parts of the HIV ecosystem to end new HIV transmissions by 2030. The programme has a number of arms of working with gay, bisexual men, black heritage communities, and trying to raise awareness amongst all Londoners and to reduce HIV stigma. I'm really excited because in the next few months we'll be launching a brand new campaign for everybody in London, which is a collective approach around how we as a capital can end HIV. I'm also going to be launching a brand new piece of work targeting people of black heritage who have higher rates of HIV but less access to testing and treatment services. So I'm really excited to see that coming off the ground because it's never happened in the capital before. So to see that piece of work to come to fruition in the next few months is a really exciting professional challenge for me, but also a real deeply personal one, because as I said, I've been in this work for 30-something years. I'm really committed to work with marginalised communities, but specifically my black community. So work is going good. I'm really excited to see what happens with my new programme and trying to influence and impact HIV reduction, care and support in the capital, in the city that I come from and the city that I love. If you could have one wish come true, what would it be? Well, flippantly, I'd like to get free Beyonce tickets for the rest of my life and backstage passes. So if you're listening, B, you know where I am, black, queer, HIV activist, I kind of deserve them. But if I could have one wish come true, it probably isn't the obvious ones that people might think about, like a HIV cure, those sorts of things, because I live pretty well in my life. I think if I could have one wish come true, it would be that we would find a bit more love and a bit more compassion and a bit more caring for each other. We're facing really difficult and challenging times ahead, times that I never thought that I'd experience, and I've lived through some pretty tough times in my 56 years. So my wish would be that we, and it's a bit, touchy-feely, but I would hope that we as humanity, as a country, as a city, could come together a bit more, that we would challenge some of the forces that are coming down the line that will attack our freedoms, that we'd find compassion and love with each other. And I think that's what I'd want.